you're just days away from week 6, but you aren't certain who to play. Well, this video will help with that. These are the must-have players for week 6. And we are starting with somebody coming in massively lower owned on DraftKings, and it's $7,600 Aaron Jones, who, look, last week his usage was incredible. You see, Jones ended up seeing a season-high 74% of the snaps, 16 opportunities, and because of that, his backfield running mate, A.J. Dillon, saw a season low, just 31% of the snaps. Now, Jones only scored 10 fantasy points on this, so people aren't going to notice his great role increase, even though his underlying usage has been elite, and you can see for yourself. You see, Aaron Jones is top 3 right now amongst all running backs in efficiency, and when you take out a couple of running backs who have a smaller sample of touches and snaps, he's actually the #1 most efficient running back through the first 5 weeks of the year. And now if his potential snaps and touches are going to increase with this great efficiency, a breakout is nearing. So play Jones, and then also consider the $5,000, somehow just $5,000 on DraftKings, Travis Etienne this week, who had a career day last week. You see, the second-year player who missed his entire rookie season goes for over 100 total yards, he puts up 14 fantasy points, and then his head coach Doug Peterson comes out and says, I need to get him more than 13 touches in a game. And like Aaron Jones, Travis Etienne, he was known in college and now the NFL for being really efficient per touch. So Jones is number 3 in efficiency for running backs, and Travis Etienne, the second-year player, is number 5. And it's the perfect time for Etienne to get more touches because he faces the Colts this week, who give up the 5th most catches to RBs. So Etienne is an advantageous play, and at the wide receiver position, $6,100 Chris Godwin is still too cheap. Now, last week, Godwin's usage was interesting. He ran 41 routes his first week back. Last week being his second week back, he only runs 27 routes. So 50% of the times that Tom Brady was throwing, he was out there running a route. That's not great. There was no reported setback, so it's likely the Bucs were just taking it easy after getting up big early in that game, and then Godwin came out later on. I don't expect Scotty Miller to play over Godwin in a close game. And now Godwin's going to have a fantastic matchup in the slot against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It might be Arthur Mollett. They might be getting their other slot cornerback back, but if it's Arthur Mollett, this guy has allowed an 84% catch rate in the slot this year. And Godwin already has 11 slot targets just the last 2 weeks alone. So consider playing Godwin and Tyreek Hill, who's $7,500. He's dealing with some injuries, but he's expected to play just like he did last week through injury, and he has a fantastic matchup. He'll face the Minnesota Vikings, who rank 28th in coverage on the year, and then his specific matchups, they're all good. He'll see majority in the slot because a lot of people don't know this. Yeah, Tyreek Hill is basically a slot receiver half of the time. He'll face Sullivan, who allows an 80% catch rate, 86% catch rate from the slot this season. And Tyreek has been elite this year. He's earning a target on 35% of his routes. Now this is through 2 to 3 different quarterbacks on the year. People are worried with Skylar Thompson, the third-string quarterback, starting, but Tyreek was fine with him last week. Tyreek caught 7 balls for over 13 fantasy points before leaving with injury. He could have had an even bigger day. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is here. Tyreek has upside. And very quietly, so does $5,700 Deontay Johnson this week, because he just saw last week a season-high 13 targets, which now has him averaging 10 targets per game. But since he didn't put up a big performance, people will probably not look too deeply at him for this week. And he finally saw his first red zone usage of the year, 3 red zone targets, so Kenny Pickett is looking his way. He saw more deep targets downfield and had some yards after the catch, which is not something he had coming into the game. So I like Deontay, but not his teammate George Pickens. I actually have the under 47.5 receiving yards for George Pickens. You can get a free bet up to $100 on prizepicks.com down below. We are 65-35 on prop picks so far this season. It's free. It's all in the Discord. It's all on Twitter, and this is going to be one of them. So go ahead and get the free bet up to $100 in the description below. And then make sure you get DK Metcalf this week, who is $6,800, and he's facing the dead last ranked secondary this week in the Arizona Cardinals. The 2 dead last ranked secondaries in the Seahawks and the Cardinals are facing each other this week. Expect a lot of points. Now, more specifically, he's going to face Marco Wilson for half to 3/4 of this game, and DK weighs 229 pounds. Marco Wilson 187 pounds, give or take. So DK has 40 plus pounds on this dude. That's leverage, especially in the red zone. And oh yeah, Wilson, besides him being an undersized cornerback in this matchup, he ranks 98th out of 104 cornerbacks in coverage this year. So he's not good against the average size wide receiver, let alone this monster in Metcalf. And DK has the fantasy cheat codes. He has 15 targets that are either in the red zone or 20 yards downfield, top 5 in the NFL. So play DK and then consider this quarterback. And it's the game of the week, and it's going to pick up a lot of ownership. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. They're both $8,000 plus. I'm leaning with Josh Allen here, who averages 27 points per game against the Chiefs, but that's not even taking into account his next level of Josh Allen that we're seeing. You see, Allen for the 3rd straight season ranks 1st in fantasy points per game, but it's not his 25 points per game that he was averaging, which is elite. He's averaging over 30 points per game this year. And it helps that he's running the ball a ton, a lot more consistency. 7 rushing attempts per game, 45 yards per game on the ground. I mean, the guy at this point is averaging nearly 10 points per game on the ground alone. And now he gets a matchup against the Chiefs, who have just like an average secondary and average pass rush, which means Allen is going to have time to pop off. Now, on the other side of this matchup is $8,000 Patrick Mahomes, who is still a fine option, but the problem is his main stacking piece, the guy who scored 4 touchdowns last week in Travis Kelce, is really expensive. After that, you have a lot of fluky, if you will, wide receivers, 3 to 4 different guys who can be in stacks here. I'll just prefer Josh Allen and his mobile upside if I had to pick a side at a similar price point, higher team total as well for Josh Allen. Now, this next running back you have to start, the rookie who is going to take advantage of Rashad Penny being injured, unfortunately, for the rest of the season, Kenneth Walker. You see, Walker plays on the number 8 offense in Seattle this year. They've been very efficient. That's because of Geno Smith and these wide receivers. They're moving the ball down the field, which helps Walker find the red zone more for potential touchdowns. And this efficient offense has a great matchup against those Cardinals that rank not only dead last in secondary, overall defense, they rank dead last. Wheels up for Walker means more rushing attempts, means more potential touchdowns. And it's not like this is just any running back. This is a second-round rookie who had over 1,700 total yards last year in the Big Ten against teams like Penn State, who have great defenses, and Ohio State. So I think he's going to do just fine behind an NFL offensive line against the worst defense in the league. I take Kenneth Walker over 61.5 rushing yards. That free bet up to $100. You could take it as well. Link in the description below. Take it immediately. And then if you want to get even more pieces of this game, there's $4,900 Zach Ertz, who according to Pro Football Focus has a top 5 matchup on the week, and he faces the Seattle linebackers who give up the most yards per cover route to the tight end position and allow 89% of the balls thrown to tight ends to be caught this season. A great matchup for Ertz. And Zach Ertz continues to lead all tight ends this season in slot snaps, which means he'll get a nice matchup in the slot against a linebacker or a safety, and that's led to an impressive 11 red zone targets on the year. Zach Ertz, likely, in my opinion, is going to score a touchdown in this game. So you go from Ertz at tight end position to another tight end in that cheap range, but he hasn't been as consistent. And that would be Kyle Pitts, who is $4,200 expected to return from injury, and this is basically just a gamble on his role changing and more so his talent, because what we saw from the last time out of him before his week 5 injury was Kyle Pitts going out there and running just 13 routes. The week before, just 16. He's now been under 20 routes run in 3 out of 4 games. Part of this is this offense just not throwing a lot, and part of it is the fact that he's staying in and blocking more. So when you're playing Kyle Pitts, it's just to get a really talented player at lower ownership and hoping Arthur Smith identifies and changes the role, especially for a really difficult matchup for the wide receivers in Atlanta this week versus San Francisco. And then we go to the wide receiver position, where this $6,900 Michael Pittman, who is not cheap and he hasn't been producing, so he'll be low owned. He only has 90 total yards the last 2 weeks, but look at his matchups. He faced Patrick Surtain last week, who's a very good cornerback, one of the best in the NFL, and then there's Christian Fulton, who is quietly a very good quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. But this week he faces the Jags, who rank bottom 10 in secondary play. Expect a little bit of a bounce back here at lower ownership. And if you want to get real crazy, there's DJ Moore this week with his new coach and his new quarterback starting in PJ Walker. And DJ Moore, in 6 games played with Philip Walker, averages over 14 fantasy points and over 10 targets per game. Much better than he's been getting right now with Baker Mayfield. And Moore now faces the Rams, who, yeah, they have Jalen Ramsey, but overall as a secondary, they rank 20th in coverage this season. A quietly nice spot for DJ. And he's a nice run back option on the other side of a Matthew Stafford stack, who is a quiet play this week in terms of being sneaky, because Tom Brady is right there in the pricing, and then they're going to go a little bit cheaper to Geno Smith, a lot of people. Stafford not picking up a lot of ownership. And look, it's a good matchup against the Carolina Panthers, who rank 21st in pressure, and Matthew Stafford, when he's not under pressure, is fantastic. When he is under pressure, he's even better somehow. But you clearly want him not under pressure. The biggest concern here is that Tyler Higbee's going to be highly owned, and Cooper Kupp is insanely expensive. And can guys on the Panthers actually force a shootout here for this to be the game that you need to have? I'm a little bit doubtful, which leads me to want to side with Tom Brady in this price range. Now, according to my ownership projections in the blueprint on Patreon, you can get the blueprint link down below. You can access it to increase your chances of winning. That's the whole goal here. Check it out, linked in the description. But in those ownership projections, Tom Brady is picking up more ownership than Matthew Stafford right now, but it's not by a lot for only being $100 more. And Brady at $6,300, he's back. And what I mean by this is now that his weapons are back, Mike Evans from the suspension, Chris Godwin getting healthier, all these guys are back, and even Julio Jones might return soon. He's throwing 52 times per game each of the last 2 weeks. He trusts his receivers more, over 350 passing yards in the last 2 games. So now he's an actual option here. We know he doesn't have mobile upside, but in terms of passing, there's a lot of upside. And they're passing in neutral to positive situations, meaning even when they're winning later in games, they're passing, which is going to be needed this week against Pittsburgh, who just got destroyed by the Bills last week. Expect similar this week. Now, since Tom Brady's cheap and you get Chris Godwin and guys like K. Dotton, the tight end, if he becomes viable with no Cameron Brate this week again, since those guys are relatively cheap, you could go all the way up at running back and play Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be low owned yet again. Even though for back-to-back weeks now, in a terrible offense that has been projected for low team totals like they are this week, McCaffrey has gone for 23 plus points, a touchdown, 100 total yards, and 7 catches in each of those games. They've clearly changed the game script to say, yeah, we need McCaffrey not to have 2 and 4 catches. Instead, let's get him 7 plus a week. And in 3 games played with PJ Walker, McCaffrey averages nearly 18 points per game, so it's still a solid producer. So McCaffrey's a lower owned option, with the highest owned play in the slate, according to the blueprint linked down below on Patreon, is going to be Ramondre Stevenson, who is just $6,000. And look, the ownership is still not high enough. You see, even if he comes in 20% owned, right now he's facing the number 32 run defense in the Browns, who rank 31st in tackling. And here's why that's important. Ramondre leads the NFL in elusiveness, breaking tackles right now, with 50 total broken tackles. This is the perfect matchup for this dude. And when Damian Harris wasn't starting last year, Ramondre averaged over 16 fantasy points per game, which for some perspective is more right now than Dalvin Cook is scoring. And to put even more perspective on this, Christian McCaffrey is the only running back I currently have projected for more points than Ramondre Stevenson this week. So you want to play Stevenson and then consider consider a $4,400 Randall Cobb, who's in a nice matchup, and he's coming off of a career game. Right after Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee show said we need to get Cobb more involved, well, he plays a season-high 64% of the snaps, runs a season-high 28 routes, and sees 13 targets. A 33% target share he saw in this game is the highest he's seen in 4 years. And he's now going to have a top 10 matchup on the entire week, according to Pro Football Focus, against Michael Carter II, the defensive back for the New York Jets. And right now, Carter is allowing an 84% catch rate to slot wide receivers, and Randall Cobb catches nearly everything thrown his way. So this is a great spot for him. And another cheap $4,000 wide receiver option is going to be Rondale Moore, who's a better play, in my opinion, than Randall Cobb this week at just $4,200. You see, Rondale Moore is by far and away a top 2 receiver on his team, and he's playing on the outside, which leads to a lot of upside. He's seen a career high in back-to-back weeks, 89% of the snaps, and then 91% of the snaps. Ran a career high 35 routes last week, and it led to a solid 8 targets. And the most exciting thing is AJ Green returned last week, and Rondale Moore was still playing over him on the majority of the outside plays when they were in 3 wide receiver sets. Now, what this means is that Rondale Moore is an every down player, so you want to play him and this low-owned veteran. And I'm a big fan of this guy this week. It's Adam Thielen at $5,900, who is a great leverage play, meaning he's going to be much lower owned than he should be. And that's exactly it. You identify leverage based on how much value they have for that slate, their odds of being in the winning lineup versus their ownership. All of that's in the blueprint on Patreon to help you win more below. But you see, Thielen has very quietly seen 7 or more targets in 4 straight games. And over that span, he's seen 9 red zone targets. But the issue is he only has 1 touchdown this year in all this red zone usage. That's not something we're familiar with Thielen, and it won't keep up. Because the dude has one of the best roles in the NFL. Running 39 routes per week is the 7th most in the NFL. He's on the field this much. He's going to start finding the end zone, especially against the Miami number 30 secondary. So consider Adam Thielen this week, who is by far and away, in my opinion, a clear, great low-owned option. Now, a tight end who won't be a low-owned option and honestly is probably worth fading is Tyler Higbee at $4,600. Look, he's going to have a good matchup against Carolina, and he's been the number 1 tight end in usage. Not only is his 9.6 targets per game elite in leading all tight ends, but right now he ranks 2nd in yards after the catch amongst tight ends. So he's actually been efficient after the catch. The problem is he'll be 20% owned this week, and we already have guys that we've talked about like Pitts and Zach Ertz at low ownership. Pat Freiermuth on the opposite side of your Tampa Bay stack. So I'm going to be fading Tyler Higbee here. And now if you want to play him, I still think he can get there through touchdowns, but I actually have him under 54.5 receiving yards this week on Prize Picks down below. That link in the description. You can tail this, take some of the other ones, win some dollar rooskies with a free bet. It's risk-free up to $100 when you use the code SAL22 on PrizePicks.com. All right, let's talk about another quarterback in a solid spot. And I want to key in on $7,300 Kyler Murray, who's in a really interesting spot. He's the only $7,000 quarterback, and he's in this tier below the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, so if people are paying up, they probably go there. I think both quarterbacks, Geno and Kyler, are in play on the slate. I'll lean to Kyler, though, because of his rushing upside. He has that nice matchup, right? We already talked about it. Seattle ranks 31st. These 2 bottom secondaries in the NFL facing each other this week, but I will lean towards Kyler Murray a little bit because of stacking reasons. His stacks will be lower owned than the DK Metcalfs and Tyler Lockett this week, so you get a little bit more unique there and more mobile upside than Geno. Now back to the running backs, and a guy who is just far too cheap still somehow, in my opinion, is $6,700 Alvin Kamar. Now, Alvin Kamar is coming off of by far his best week of the year. He comes back from injury. He plays 83% of the snaps, which is basically tied for like the most he's seen in 2 to 3 years now. He sees 29 touches on 29 opportunities. And now here's the thing. I know Michael Thomas is returning this week. I know Chris Olave got hurt in that last game, but this is elite usage. He is the clear RB1 in this backfield. And now he's dirt cheap. Sure, he'll pick up modest ownership, 15% or so. Guys like Ramondre Stevenson and Kenneth Walker are going to be pulling down that ownership, but he has a good matchup. It's not like it's a tough spot. He's going to do all this again. He's going to see 20 plus touches again in a good matchup against the number 21 Bengals run defense. And now a guy I mentioned earlier was AJ Dillon and how he saw an awful role last week, just 30% of the snaps, but his head coach afterwards, Matt LaFleur, did say we need to get him back to his normal usage, which is why if you really want a crazy leverage play, it's $5,600 AJ Dillon, who has one of the highest team totals, 3rd highest for the Packers at 26.5 on the slate in a good matchup. And if he gets back to that normal usage, as we saw the 3 previous weeks, it means he'll see like 55% of the snaps and 16 total touches with a couple of red zone opportunities. There's a chance he can go for that 15 to 20 plus point game at likely 2% ownership. And you can access all of that ownership in the DFS blueprint on Patreon, link down below, and you get all these other perks as well. A GPP strategy show on Sunday mornings where I talk about all my exposures, the proper way to be playing the slate, the top plays, the top leverages, and exactly what you need to do to win money on the slate, projections, ranks, a database, player notes for every player, a whole lot more. It's in the blueprint down below. Join the thousands of other people utilizing right now. All right, so it's about time we talk about a guy who's likely going to spike up in ownership. And this is going to be Eno Benjamin because James Conner is doubtful this week. Jonathan Ward, the RB4 in this team, is on IR. He's not playing. The backup running back, Darrell Williams, he's out. He's not playing. So it's going to basically be the Eno Benjamin backfield, and Eno Benjamin has been good this season. You see, Benjamin ranks right now top 10 in yards created per touch. He's number 4 in PFF's elusiveness rating, how he can break tackles. So he's been solid. It's been a small sample, though, and in past seasons, I will caution you, Eno Benjamin, whether it's the preseason or his regular season touches, hasn't looked good. But he's a fantastic pass catcher from college, and it looks like he's changed his game, at least so far, on a small snap share. But the fact that Stevenson is a little bit cheaper, Eno Benjamin and Kenneth Walker are cheap, even Travis Etienne, means these top-end running backs aren't going to be owned, which makes it even more appealing to try and get to a Christian McCaffrey. And if people are going to go to the cheap running backs, it means they'll go to the expensive wide receivers, which is probably going to all get soaked up by Stephon Diggs, making guys like Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or even a Deebo Samuel appealing. I personally like going down to the Tyreek Hills, but Stephon Diggs is still a solid play, especially if you're playing Josh Allen this week. He continues to dominate. I don't know why he's not more expensive at this point in the 9K range, because he's basically producing like that each week, 24 plus points again last week. And every single one of his matchups that he'll face, because Stephon Diggs moves to the right side, the left side, the slot, they'll be fine this week. There's no shutdown cornerback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And Diggs ranks right now 3rd in the NFL in his cheat code targets. He has 6 deep targets and 11 red zone targets. These targets are what lead to the biggest upside plays and the most fantasy points. When you're getting these targets, you have the cheat codes, you have the upside. So I'm playing Stephon Diggs only in those Bills stacks or Kansas City runbacks, because otherwise he'll be too highly owned. I'll just get away from it, go to Tyreek, go to Justin Jefferson. But one way to get a lower owned option who's actually cheaper in those lineups is going to be to play Isaiah McKenzie, who's expected to return this week. And now last week, Khalil Shakur was playing in this role, sees 5 targets. McKenzie, expect him to take on that role. He'll run 25 routes. He earns a target on 22% of his routes this year, which means he'll see 5 or 6 targets, like Shakur last week, who ended up putting up a nice fantasy day of 70 plus yards and a touchdown. So McKenzie's a cheaper wide receiver option that's definitely in play in one of the best game environments, and here's a cheaper tight end option. If you're going for cheap tight ends this week, Cade Otton will be an option for you if Cameron 8 misses again for Tampa Bay, but other than that, you're going to have $3,300 Hayden Hurst, who looks to be clearly healthy. You see, Hurst was injured in these games. He only plays 30% of the snaps in week 3, and then he's still getting back up to full speed on Thursday night, playing just 57% of the snaps, but this past week, 81% of the snaps, 30 routes run. He sees 7 targets. He's now seen at least 7 targets and has 5 red zone targets in the 3 games. That's what he's averaging in the 3 games where he's been a full-time player. So expect around 7 targets and 80% of the snaps this week, which means he should really be $1,000+ more. And then if you still need some wide receiver value, consider Jacoby Myers at 5,300, who is still the most disrespected wide receiver one in all of fantasy. Because last week, while playing with a quarterback 3, who's a 3rd-string rookie quarterback in Bailey Zappi, he still gets the job done, no problem, no questions asked. You see, Myers goes for about 25 fantasy points last week. He puts up over 100 yards on 7 catches, finds the end zone, because where he's running his routes, out of the slot, the short to intermediate range, they're easy targets to be completed by a 3rd-string rookie quarterback, and trustworthy area of the field for that guy to be throwing to, get his confidence up, in Bailey Zappi. So play Jacoby Myers and the rest of these dudes this week. And if you want to increase your chances of winning while doing less research, well then click the link in the description below to access the blueprint for week 6.